Marcus had never been one for the outdoors, but losing his job at the marketing firm left him desperate for cheap thrills to fill the endless void of unemployment. When his college roommate Derek suggested a weekend camping trip to the Catskills, Marcus figured why not. It beat another weekend drowning in job rejection emails and takeout containers. Derek had always been the outdoorsy type, the kind of guy who owned actual hiking boots instead of just wearing sneakers everywhere. He'd done this route before. He claimed, knew a perfect spot just a couple miles off the main trail where they could set up camp without dealing with crowds or park rangers asking for permits. The hiking had been surprisingly pleasant. October in the Catskills painted everything in brilliant oranges and deep reds, and the crisp air felt clean in Marcus's city-poisoned lungs. Derek led them through winding paths between towering pines and ancient maples until they reached a small clearing nestled against a rocky outcropping. A thin stream trickled nearby, and the ground was carpeted with a thick layer of fallen leaves that crunched satisfyingly underfoot. "See? Told you this place was perfect," Derek said, dropping his oversized backpack with a grunt. The clearing felt secluded, almost private, surrounded by dense forest that seemed to swallow sound. Marcus had to admit it was beautiful, peaceful in a way that made his constant anxiety feel almost manageable. While Derek set up their tents with practiced efficiency, Marcus gathered firewood from the surrounding trees. The work felt good, purposeful. Soon they had a decent blaze crackling in the center of their little camp, orange light dancing across the rocky walls behind them and casting long shadows into the tree line. Derek proved to be an excellent camp cook, producing hot dogs and Esmores ingredients from his pack, like some kind of wilderness magician. They ate and talked as darkness crept in around them, the fire creating a warm bubble of light in the growing blackness. For the first time in months, Marcus felt his shoulders actually relax. "This is exactly what I needed," Marcus said, poking at the fire with a stick and watching sparks spiral up into the star-filled sky. "Yeah, man. Nothing like getting away from all the noise, you know." Derek took a long swig from his beer. "Out here, it's just us," and a sharp crack echoed from somewhere in the darkness beyond their campfire's reach. Both men froze, listening. The forest had gone completely silent. No cricket songs, no rustling leaves, nothing but the pop and hiss of their fire. "Probably just a branch falling," Derek said, but his voice had lost its casual confidence. Another crack, this one closer. Then another. The sounds seemed deliberate, spaced evenly, like someone was stepping on dry branches just outside the ring of firelight. "Hello," Derek called out. "Anyone there?" The forest swallowed his words without echo. Marcus felt his pulse quicken as he peered into the darkness, trying to make sense of the shifting shadows between the trees. Everything looked like it could be moving. "Maybe we should," Marcus started to say, but Derek cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Listen." At first Marcus heard nothing but his own breathing and the fire's gentle crackling. Then, drifting from somewhere deep in the woods, came a sound that made his blood turn to ice water. It was laughter. Soft, musical, almost melodic, but wrong somehow. Too high-pitched, too rhythmic, like a music box winding down. The sound seemed to come from multiple directions at once, echoing off the trees in a way that made it impossible to pinpoint the source. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered. The laughter continued, rising and falling in an eerie sing-song pattern. It wasn't the kind of laugh that suggested happiness or amusement. There was something hollow about it, something that made Marcus think of empty rooms and abandoned playgrounds. Derek was already moving, reaching for something in his pack. He pulled out a hunting knife, the blade catching the firelight. "Stay close to the fire," he said quietly. "Don't let it die down." Derek, who would be out here laughing in the middle of the night? "I don't know, but I don't like it." The laughter stopped as suddenly as it had started, leaving them in oppressive silence. Marcus threw another log on the fire, sending up a shower of sparks. The larger flames illuminated more of the clearing, but seemed to make the surrounding darkness even more impenetrable. They sat in tense silence for nearly an hour, jumping at every small sound. A pine cone dropping, an owl's distant call, the settling of cooling wood. Eventually, exhaustion began to override anxiety, and they agreed to take turns keeping watch. Derek took the first shift while Marcus crawled into his tent. The thin nylon walls felt pathetically inadequate against whatever might be lurking in those woods. He lay in his sleeping bag, listening to every sound, trying to distinguish between normal forest noises and potential threats. Sometime around 3 a.m., during Marcus's watch, the laughter returned. This time it was closer, much closer. It seemed to circle their camp, moving from tree to tree just beyond the firelight's reach. Marcus gripped Derek's knife so tightly his knuckles went white, but he didn't wake his friend. Something told him that whatever was out there was waiting for them to be alone. The laughter grew louder, more insistent. And then Marcus heard something that made his stomach drop, another voice joining the first. Then a third. Soon the entire forest seemed filled with that horrible, musical laughter, dozens of voices creating a twisted chorus that rose and fell like waves. Marcus couldn't stand it anymore. "Derek," he hissed, shaking his friend's tent. Derek emerged instantly, fully alert, knife already in hand. "How long?" he asked. "Maybe 10 minutes. It's getting worse." The laughter reached a crescendo and then stopped abruptly, leaving them in a silence so complete it felt like being wrapped in cotton. Even the fire seemed to burn more quietly. "We're leaving," Derek said. "Right now? Pack everything." They broke camp in record time, stuffing sleeping bags and gear into packs with shaking hands. The fire they left burning. Neither wanted to waste time properly extinguishing it, and somehow the light felt like their only protection. As they shouldered their packs and prepared to head back toward the trail, the laughter started again. But this time it was different. This time it was coming from the direction they needed to go. "We'll cut through the woods," Derek said. "Parallel to the trail, but not on it." They pushed through the undergrowth, branches catching at their clothes and faces. Marcus's flashlight beam jumped wildly as he stumbled over roots and rocks. Behind them, the laughter seemed to follow, always just at the edge of hearing. After what felt like hours of fighting through dense forest, they finally emerged onto the main trail. The marked path felt like salvation, civilized, safe, normal. They practically ran the remaining distance to Derek's truck. It wasn't until they were driving away, the dashboard clock reading 5:23 a.m., that Derek finally spoke. "Marcus," he said, his voice strangely flat. "I need to tell you something." "What?" Derek's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his fingers had gone white. "I've been camping in those woods for 15 years. I know every trail, every clearing." "So?" Derek turned to look at him, and in the green glow of the dashboard lights, his face looked absolutely haunted. "There is no clearing where we set up camp. The spot I took you to, it doesn't exist. According to every map I've ever seen, there's supposed to be solid rock there. A cliff face that's been there for thousands of years." Marcus stared at him, trying to process what he was hearing. "That's impossible. We were there. We had a fire. We ate. I know what we did," Derek said quietly. "But I also know those woods. And I know that clearing isn't supposed to be there." He reached into his glove compartment and pulled out a folded topographical map, spreading it across the dashboard. His finger traced their route, then stopped at a spot marked with closely spaced contour lines. "Here," he said, "this is where we camped. According to this map, according to every map I've ever seen, this should be a 100-foot cliff drop." Marcus looked at the map, then back at Derek, then at the dark forest disappearing behind them in the rearview mirror. His mouth had gone completely dry. "Then where the hell were we?"